welcome to Exhibitor 101. We're very excited to have you here today. My name is Evan Garvey. I'm Executive Vice President over Operations here at AGS Exposition Services, and I am going to turn part of this over to Megan. Hi, Megan.
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to be here today, and we're going to go over some really important exhibitor information for the upcoming podcast event. My name is Megan Nielsen. I am the Event Services Manager here, so I manage the Event Services Department, and also going to be assisting kind of going over some of the important information that we'll cover.
Perfect. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started?
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. One of the main things that I wanted to talk about was the exhibitor welcome letter email. It's probably been some time since most of you have received it. We tend to send it out probably between 60 and 90 days out, so it's probably been a little while. But this informational email is going to have access to your online ordering portal, which I think is not just an ordering portal anymore. It's kind of like your one-stop shop for everything for the event, so more of an information portal, because it's also going to give you access to your exhibitor service manual. So all of the ordering forms that you might need, ancillary services, informational documents pertaining to the event. And then it does also contain our ordering forms, although I think you'll find that the online ordering site is a little bit easier to use, and just kind of for your convenience, you might go that route instead. And it does also kind of outline some of our important discount deadline dates and that sort of thing. So our discount deadline for ordering for this event is actually going to be tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, August 8th. We did end up with a one-day extension just to kind of give you guys a little bit more time to put your orders in if there is something in addition to what your booth includes that you'll need. And currently your booth package is going to include a 6x30 black skirted table, 2 plastic folding chairs, wastebasket, and an ID sign. So that's just to kind of help kick us off, and then we'll go ahead and we'll jump into our next area, which will be the material handling and shipping.
Exceptional. Let's do that. The largest portion I think that everybody kind of wants some detail around is usually material handling. So we'll start with material handling and what that means for you, as well as what we do in order to support that process. Then we'll talk about labor and some of the other services and discounts that kind of come along with your ordering deadlines and pieces after that. But let's go ahead and dive into the material handling process. I know that this is kind of a unique subject in the sense that more often than not, you don't go to other things that we do that have what we would call material handling, right? So trade shows and events are very particular to that process, and part of that is because material handling is designed specifically so that we can set up a temporary event location, hold some of those materials in advance for you, but not also hold them in advance, make sure that they arrive pretty much before you do if you send them to the advance, or to provide a specific set of team members on those sites that can actually receive your materials for you. So we kind of break down material handling a little bit, and I think Megan and I will cover this for the next few minutes, but we break it down into sort of the before the event, your during the event process, and then the sort of the end, the outbound, the return, if you will, of your materials. And so I'd like to pass off and maybe let Megan take care of some of the original explanations around the beginning, the sort of the before event, and maybe I can tackle some of the during show process, and then we'll go through the end. So.
Yeah, that sounds good. So just to kind of expand on what Evan's already reviewed, we'll go over the material handling versus shipping. I know that that's probably one of the most commonly misunderstood differences between handling your materials. So the material handling is when we actually receive your shipment, whether that's going to be at the advanced warehouse, if you're going to ship direct to site. It's us physically receiving those materials and either storing them if you're shipping advance, or if you're shipping direct, it's going to be just bringing them out directly to your booth space, storing any empty containers, and then we're also going to assist with the loading process to your outbound carrier. The shipping aspect is a little bit different because that is the process of you actually hiring your own carrier or shipping out any carrier of your choice, and they're actually going to be transporting those materials either to the advanced warehouse or direct to site. So different pieces that sound like they're a similar service, but one half of that is going to be using a carrier that you select to physically transport the materials versus us handling them once they already arrive at the warehouse or at the event facility. So just kind of wanted to cover what those differences were. And now I'll kind of go into that process from start to finish. So before the event, you're going to select your carrier. Our show carrier is ABF Freight. You are not at all required to use them. You can use whatever carrier you like. Just note that with FedEx or UPS, some of the smaller carrier or the smaller package carriers, you're going to have a little bit more of a limitation as far as when you can schedule those to be delivered. Sometimes FedEx and UPS will arrive earlier than anticipated, and that may cause some issues for you depending on where you're shipping and what those deadlines are going to be.
That's a great point, Megan. I think that when we talk about things like targeted deliveries, some shows are more complicated than others. Some actually have targeted windows for delivery. But in this particular instance, when we talk about targeted deliveries, we just mean that the advanced warehouse has a specific series of days that they are available to receive your material, along with specific times during those days, usually Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. in the time frame at which it's being received. So whether that's Mountain Time, whether that's Central, whatever that is. So to Megan's point, small package carriers tend to kind of come when they come. So if you do have specific delivery windows, and that more pertains, I think, to direct more than probably problems with the advanced side, because the advanced has a pretty wide window. You know, it's usually 30 days prior to show, and it's usually, like we said, 8 to 4:30. So that's usually pretty easy to deal with. But the direct-to-show site tends to be a little bit more complicated when you're dealing with small package carriers. So do keep an eye on that, because your delivery windows are probably the most important. It's not so much about fees in the delivery window as it could be, but it's more about making sure that they arrive when we are physically at site, especially with direct, or when we are physically able to receive them at the advanced. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, excellent point. I know some of the challenges with the direct deliveries, to Evan's point, are hitting that very specific window. Your exhibitor move-in starts on Monday for a short period of time, and then you do have some time on Tuesday. So that means that those small package carriers have to hit either a Monday or Tuesday delivery, depending on when you ship it from your location. It could arrive early, could arrive late. And we want to make sure you guys have your materials at the right time so that you can go ahead and get your booth set up, since we do have such a limited time to get you guys moved in. So once you've selected a carrier, you'll then make a decision whether or not you're going to be shipping to the advanced warehouse, which is highly recommended, or direct to site. The reason that we recommend shipping advance is for your convenience. We will receive the materials up to 30 days in advance, which at this point we're well within that time frame. But then what we'll do is we'll bring it over to show site, and we will deliver it to your booth before your exhibitor move-in even starts. So the benefit to you is that when that move-in starts, your materials will already be there. There's not going to be a waiting for somebody to get unloaded at the loading dock and then for it to get processed and be delivered to your booth. It's automatically going to be there waiting for you when you arrive, and that move-in starts Monday at 3 p.m. So that is the biggest convenience. That's why we highly recommend the advanced warehouse shipping. The other option is to go direct to site. And as we've already covered, it is a limited time frame to do that. So that's your choice. I know sometimes there is a delay in actually getting the materials out, whether it's going to be at another event, it's coming from a third-party location. So whatever that situation looks like for you, once you decide advance or direct, we can definitely help you with the details on that if you have questions about that delivery window.
Absolutely.
If there is any, bit of an extension with the advance, we'll cover that as well, as far as what that's going to look like. But once we actually get everything on site, whether that's coming from the advanced warehouse or you've shipped it direct to site, our team will work on getting everything unloaded, and then we will automatically deliver it to your booth. From there, you'll go ahead and unpack your booth materials. You'll get everything set up. And then what you'll do is you'll come see Kristen at your service desk there on site, and she's going to give you empty stickers. That's to store any of your empty cases. So, your fiber cases, any cardboard boxes, crates, that sort of thing. We take them of all sizes. You'll put an empty sticker on each piece. At that point, our team will automatically pull those materials off the floor. We'll put them in our empty storage trailer for the duration of the event. Now, if you're in a situation where maybe you need one of those items back as a priority, we do have a premium return service that's available. We do limit it to 3 pieces maximum, and that service is $250, but that will allow that piece to come out as a priority over the standard empty storage.
This is a great point because, regardless of when your materials come out, we always take up the carpet first. So there is usually a small delay between the time at which the event closes and, of course, when the materials come from the storage area back to your location. But to that, the premium return are always going to be our first return items, and then everything after that will come out. More often than not, there is a little bit of a method to the madness, but it's almost based entirely on when people push all of their empties out into the aisle such that they are ready to have those removed, specifically making sure that you have those empty stickers on it so that we can claim those and bring them back. Those empty stickers are obviously important because that's how we know what booth they came from. We'll be able to look at those stickers. That prioritizes the sense of like, hey, I need to get this out. This is going to this particular booth. So please do label your empties as effectively as possible. If you want to keep it, for example, if you have an empty cardboard box, but you do want to keep that box, we highly recommend please label that. Leaving it out there, we want to make sure that we don't mistake it for something that is sort of being left out as trash. So label everything you definitely want to keep, or if you're holding on to it under your table and things like that, that's perfectly fine, as long as it can be hidden away and it's not seen for direct sight. Usually most of those things are stored, but they don't have to explicitly be stored. But yeah, and I love that because once the end of the show comes, everything does come out. Of course, this process is a little bit more specific because leaving that show, you have a specific window from which you have to exit. So you have to be done and out of the actual hall by about 5 p.m. on August 24th. But that also means that your carrier, so whoever you're choosing to move your materials from the event, has to be checked in. And we usually have that set up. I think, Megan, that's probably set up for 4 p.m. on August 24th? I'm sorry, I apologize. It's 3 p.m. So the timing for your particular event is 3 p.m. on August 24th for your carrier to be checked in. I do highly recommend to make sure that you call your carrier in advance so that they know that they're responsible for being there at the latest by 3 p.m. And at that point, once we know your carrier's checked in, one of the other pieces that you have to determine is who that person is for us. So we need a bill of lading. So that bill of lading, I think, tends to be a little bit of the confusing part because oftentimes you're given a bill of lading from your carrier, which is great. We do want to keep a copy of that, but we do have the same kind of paperwork. That's an explicit sign-off that says, hey, my materials are packed and ready to go. This is where it's coming from. This is where it's going. This is my carrier that I've selected. These are the pieces and the piece counts and the estimated weights that I have. And then you provide us some contact information on that form. And then at that point, you'll be able to turn it in once you're packed and ready to go. The nice part is we match their carrier information when they come to do their pickup with your carrier information. And that basically says, hey, we can release this to you. This is a shipment that you've come to pick up. Here you go. We help you through the material handling process by moving it from your booth area onto the carrier. We check the piece counts to make sure everything matches so that it actually is exactly what you're trying to send out the door. And hopefully from there, absolutely everything you return either to your destination of choice or ultimately it goes on to another event like Megan kind of mentioned. So we know that there's some sort of time sensitivity to some of those things. So do make sure when you're selecting your carrier or your carrier services that you're noting that you want some type of time sensitivity if you need it to get to that next event pretty quickly. We do offer labels. You'll be able to print your labels at the service desk, or if you need some assistance, the nice part is you can send us that information in advance. There's a form inside the service manual, but there's also the ability to create your bill of lading in advance. So you can do that on your eHub site. So again, the welcome letter is really hugely important, so you can get on to online ordering, use some of those resources in advance. And the nice thing is, if you create your bill of lading in advance, we will provide you a copy of your bill of lading, we'll provide you a copy of your labels, and those will all be in your booth ready to go when you're packing up to head out. So some of those nice services are there and available for you. But again, bill of lading is a very important part of the process. I can't emphasize that enough. Your materials need somewhere to go. They can't stay on site, which obviously you understand, but we want to make sure that they get mated with the carrier of your choice. Obviously, things would get rerouted if they're left behind on our show carrier, but we try to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we want to really communicate with you both in advance and on show site to ensure that your materials, get to where they're supposed to be going.
Yeah, and one of the ways that we do that too to make sure we have all of the information correct is, yes, your team will go ahead and submit that information to us in advance so that we can get that pre-printed. But we also want to touch base with your on-site personnel. So once they've packed up everything, they've put in those pre-printed labels on it, they're then going to finalize the piece count on that printed bill of lading. They're going to leave all the materials in the booth, and then they're going to turn that into Kristen at the service desk, and she's just going to go ahead and look over it, make sure everything looks right to her. If she has any questions, we'll clarify that at that point. We'll get a signature, contact information, somebody we can contact if there does appear to be an issue when we are in the process of loading, or if we have any questions. We'll then do that touch base at that point. So it's really important that we have your on-site contact person come and see us at the service desk once they've completed the entire process, and they're not just leaving that bill of lading in their booth. That will also indicate to us that your items are packed and they are ready to be loaded.
Absolutely. I'd love to cover a little bit of some of the money-saving aspects so that, when you're preparing for your shipments, that you kind of keep an eye on certain elements associated with it. One of which is everything that goes to the advanced warehouse is a 200-pound minimum, regardless of the size. Though when you ship direct, there is an option for small package, but there's size limitations in those small packages. So there are cost differences in some of those services. So we highly recommend that if you're going to send large pieces of equipment or crates and large boxes and things, advanced warehouse is perfect. If you're going to send something under 20 pounds, you might want to target it for the actual direct, but we can still receive it at the advance. It's just most shipments come in at a minimum of 200 pounds, so they get charged that way. So ultimately, if you can group your shipments together, one shipment coming into the advance or one shipment coming direct, there's always a savings in the sense that we're not taking it and going, okay, this shipment came in on one day and then another shipment on another day. So know that we do separate shipments based on both the quantities that come in and the receiving date. So we try to combine things when they're on the same day, but when they're separated by days, they come in, they have minimums, 200-pound minimums, and the service manual will outline more of those details. So I highly recommend that you look in that material handling section. That will give you a lot of the details around those particular costs.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, just understand that those 200-pound minimums are per shipment. So if you have multiple packages coming from different locations, or maybe a third-party vendor, on one side of the country and another on the other, each one of those is going to be subject to a 200-pound minimum. So what we do also recommend is that you consolidate that as much as possible. If you can have, those things come to one location and just ship them all together to the advanced warehouse, you can definitely save yourself from having multiple 200-pound minimums for maybe some smaller materials. So consolidation is key when you're shipping into the advanced warehouse. And also just to kind of expand on what Evan mentioned about the direct to show site small package shipments is the entire package weight has to be less than 30 pounds. So it's not per item, it's per shipment. So let's say you have 3 cardboard boxes coming in. Each one of those 3 boxes has to be a combined weight of under 30 pounds, not 30 pounds apiece. So that'll just help save you a little bit for some of those smaller items you might ship in.
Absolutely. Yeah, and again, we have the small pack rate information, we have the traditional material handling rate information, all inside your eHub where you can access that information. Again, welcome letter is huge and important. You can gain all those details. The nice part is we do also still have this quick reference guide that we're going to deliver to you after the this podcast. And I think that the great part about this is at least cover a lot of the details that we're covering today on this.
Yeah, and it even has some of the details as far as the cost. I know we haven't necessarily done a lot of conversation about cost, but you can find all of that detail in this resource guide that we're going to follow up with. Also, the online ordering site does a great job of giving you an idea of what your estimate's going to look like by you just kind of plugging in some of the key details to your shipment, where you're shipping, when it's going to arrive, that sort of thing, and it'll give you a general idea of what that estimate's going to look like.
Agreed. Well, why don't we hop over to some of the basics around labor services? Because I think that, right behind material handling, there's often labor service questions. And, depending upon how your company's set up, you're planning for your event. Sometimes you'll come in, you'll want to set your own booth. Sometimes you'll hire AGS to do the setup with you. Sometimes you'll hire AGS to do it entirely for you. So I'd love to kind of go through some of those details with you so that, if you do decide you need to order support on those things, or, if you decide to do it on your own, perfectly fine. We just want to make sure you understand your best options. So, on this particular event, there's going to be straight time and overtime when it comes to labor services. But when it comes to your choices around your labor options, there are 2 types. There is exhibitor supervised labor, and then there is AGS supervised labor. And I'd love to have Megan kind of explain a bit more of the details around the difference between the 2 and the services that we kind of offer within that.
Yeah, so all labor has to be supervised, right? So whether that's somebody from your team or if you would like to hire somebody from our team, either one of those situations would work perfectly fine. The biggest difference here is there going to be somebody from your team physically on site to kind of direct the laborers that are going to be sent to your booth. So they'll need to make sure that if it's a structure, it's being put together the way that it was intended, it's facing the right way, directionally, everything is going the way that you'd like it to go. If you are choosing to have somebody from your team supervise, like I said, they need to be on site during the time that you've requested that labor service. And then they'll just need to stop by the service desk, let us know, hey, I'm here, I'm ready for my labor.
I think that's a really important point. The check-in for the labor is critical, because all labor services, even though you put a reservation time on it, are all will call based. So in the sense that, if you set a time and you're like, I need these people at 4 p.m., the best thing to do, maybe 5-10 minutes in advance of your 4 p.m. start, come to the service desk. You can speak with the service coordinator and be like, hey, I'm here for such and such a company and booth number. I'm ready for my labor team. Can they please come over? And absolutely, we'll be able to sort of get your details from you if there are any additional ones, and we'll make sure that your labor call team is sent over to your booth and ready to go. They usually come with their own basic tools, which is really great. It's kind of convenient. So, we try to make this as turnkey as possible for you when it comes to labor solutions.
Yeah, definitely. We try to make it as easy as possible to get that set up and completed in a timely manner at the time that you've requested. The other option is to hire AGS supervision to go ahead and start your labor without having somebody from your team physically there. So that fee is, there's a minimum $50 fee or 35% of your total in labor charges. And we can go over that with you if you have any questions about what that cost would look like depending on what your estimate's going to be. But the biggest benefit is that you physically don't have to be on site for us to go ahead and get your labor call started. Now, one of the key elements to this is making sure that we have the information to set your booth the way that you intended it without you being there. So sending over any detailed booth installation instructions, or if you even have something as simple as a map just to kind of show us where you want things once we get them assembled. Pretty much as much information as possible. Information overload in these scenarios where you're hiring us to go ahead and complete that supervision.
And I think that one of the things that we touched on earlier was the advanced warehousing of materials. We always recommend, if you're going to do an AGS supervised labor set, that you send your materials to the advanced warehouse. That gives our team the most amount of time to go over your diagrams and make sure that the pieces and parts are there, it's assembled on time. And in most cases, when it's an AGS supervised set like that, and you send it to the advance, more often than not, your booth is set before you ever show up to the facility. So the nice part is you can walk in almost at the start of Exhibitor move-in, and suddenly your booth is built. So depending on the complexity, that might change a little bit, but for the most part, when we have your advanced materials ready for us, we try to get our labor teams and supervisors started on those as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and that's just another one of the benefits is shipping your items to the advanced warehouse. If you're hiring AGS to supervise, everything's already going to be there for you, so there won't be any delays. Now, sometimes exhibitors will choose to ship direct, which, sometimes it's unavoidable, but it may cause some delays in being able to set up your labor if it doesn't arrive within the specified exhibitor move-in times, or maybe it arrives a little bit later in the day. So just keep that in mind when you're organizing both of those elements if you are going to do an AGS supervised labor set. I did also want to just go over a couple other pieces that kind of fall under the labor category. First and foremost, if you do not want to hire AGS labor, you are able to do that yourself, but you'll just want to make sure that you're following the local labor union rules and regulations, and you can actually find that information on our exhibitor portal or the online ordering site under the manual and form section. It'll be in the official contractor subcategory, and that'll kind of outline what your staff can do versus what you may have to hire our staff to do, just depending on your needs. So I just would like to remind you guys to go ahead and check that if there's any question about what you can or can't do. The other option is if you are choosing to hire your own contractor, which we refer to as an exhibitor appointed contractor. I think at this point we've passed the deadline, although we can probably make an exception depending on the circumstance. But basically, if you're hiring your own contractor to come in and install your booth, there are some required documents that we'll need from you. We'll need a notification of intent to use a third-party contractor, and then we'll also need a certificate of liability insurance from them just to kind of make sure all of our bases are covered. And then just to kind of add on to that, if for some reason you have a third party that is also paying for services on your behalf, there is a separate form for that. You can also find that in the manual and form section. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to our event services team. We can kind of guide you through what the differences are, or maybe what required documentation we'll need from you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the EAC process is probably one of the most important ones when it comes to your options for labor and servicing on show site, because I know many of you do have unique custom displays that you take to multiple events, and so you have trusted relationships with those particular types of companies, those partnerships. So we encourage you. Those are great still too. We want everybody to participate. That paperwork that Megan's talking about around liability and details, that helps us not only have contact information but understand that those individuals are representing your company when they're physically on that floor. And many facilities require from not only our company, but even yours, those details in advance so that they can deal with security needs and other related liability issues. So, please do look in the EAC agreement areas and the details around that inside your service manual. I think it has a lot of relevant and important information. So that's great.
Yep. And then one of the other commonly requested items is your ancillary service providers. So if you're going to need any AV equipment, internet, electric, that sort of thing, all of those are third-party vendors. and you can find those forms in your online portal. If you go into the manual and forms section, you'll go down to ancillary services, and then you'll be able to find those forms. Now, once you've completed the forms and you've figured out exactly what your needs are going to be, make sure you pay attention to the contact information on the form itself, because that's where you'll need to submit that order.
Absolutely. And some of those companies also offer direct online ordering themselves. So even though you're in our portal, a lot of them also might have links directly, and you can do your online ordering through them. You can then double check that your services have been ordered. We do our best at ShowSite to direct you to the right organizations, the companies that are responsible for it. In many cases, much like in large hotel facilities or convention centers, that there are some in-house services that are exclusively provided to you from those facilities. We don't have control over those, but we try to at least pass on as much information and as much detail that we have to you so that you can make at least those connections and obtain those services as you need them. Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of labor in a bit of a nutshell. You know, one of the things, just as a side note, especially because you might end up building your own displays, I can't stress enough, bring a small toolkit for yourself. I think oftentimes, you know, we get so wrapped up in making sure the physical display makes it there and some of the marketing pieces that we forget sometimes that we need. You know, a basic screwdriver, even some wipes to wipe down tabletops, and, you know, and your graphics and prepare your space. I think that those kind of rescue kits, so to speak, really do tend to come in handy. So I do highly recommend if you can bring a small kit with you. Try not to pack it in the materials you're shipping, because if you have it with you, then you can at least use it. But if you at least pack it in the materials you're shipping, at least those can arrive with it as well. So.
Yeah, and if all else fails and you've maybe forgotten something, come and see us at the service desk. We do pack our own materials, and we don't have a ton of extra supplies, but we usually will try to find something or point you in the right direction. So yeah, anything that you might be missing, even if you're like, oh, they're never going to have this, they're not going to be able to help me out, definitely come and see us, and we might be able to work something out for you.
Never hurts to ask.
Yeah, definitely.
Agree. Perfect. Love to jump over a little bit. We have Kristen Brown in here. I know you can't specifically see her, but she's our person on the street who has collected multiple questions. So I'd love to go into sort of a quick maybe Q&A session with some of these things that have been collected over the last few months, and see if we can answer some questions that seem to have sort of come up. I do also recommend we are answering questions in the chat as you're watching this, so please don't hesitate to add your questions into the chat segment. We will do our best to answer those, and if we can't get you exact details right now, we'll get your contact information and we'll reach out to you directly after the cast. So hi, Kristen.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Thanks to have you in here. It's appreciated. No, we've kind of got you hidden off camera, but I know looks like you've got a decent little list over there, so maybe we can dive in. What do you got?
Yeah, is cleaning included when I order carpet or just in general with my booth?
Good question. Megan.
Yeah, so when you order carpet, the carpet is delivered clean. Now, sometimes it will collect debris, or, just during the general unpacking process, it may get a little bit dirty. So we do recommend, if you are going to have a little bit of a messier setup, that maybe you order cleaning services in advance, since it's not actually included as a daily service when you rent carpet. So again, it's delivered clean, but sometimes it just kind of gets a little bit dirty in the process of moving in. So you can definitely order that service through us in the online ordering portal. Or if you're not sure you're going to need it, and then you get to ShowSite and it's made a little bit of a mess during your unpacking, then that's definitely a service that we can offer in real time on ShowSite, and you would just visit Kristen at the service desk to go ahead and get that set up.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think also, too, there are multiple options. So we can do a quick one-time cleaning right up front. And if you don't actually technically have a surface that needs to be vacuumed, we can also do mopping services and wipe-off surfaces as well. We do have some extended services that go a little bit farther, which are the
porter service.
Our porter services.
Yeah.
We do have some extended services that we offer, our porter services, which can be done in an hourly format or all day, every day, and that allows us to sort of take out trash while you're actively operating. So if you have more complex, things going on in your space and you constantly want it clean, we certainly have the available servicing to do that.
Yeah, it'll also include just wiping down any general services as well. So maybe it's a situation where you're going to need that service. I would recommend ordering that in advance so we can properly prepare for it, although we usually will also have the staff there to do it on site as well.
Kristen, what do you got?
Can I bring my own floor covering and furniture, or do I have to order it?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, excellent question. So you are not required to order a floor covering from us. You are welcome to bring in your own. This year, the floor is not going to be carpeted, and although it is not required of you, we do want to make sure you understand that if you're not renting it from us, you're not bringing it in yourselves, it is going to be concrete flooring in your booth space. So just as a little reminder there, but you are able to bring it in yourself. Now, there's a couple things that I want to go over in regards to bringing in your own materials. So if you decide, let's say you're going to rent it from another company and they're going to deliver it on your behalf, keep in mind that anything being delivered to the loading dock or the advanced warehouse is going to result in material handling charges. So that would be an extra cost to you on top of, whatever you've paid to rent it. Also, if you're planning on renting your own furniture, maybe through a third-party provider, and they're going to be delivering it, again, that is going to require material handling, since it's going to be something that will be unloaded and handled over a loading dock. The other option is to bring it in yourself, which by that we mean, to go ahead and hand carry it into the facility. And in that situation, you'll just want to make sure that you review the labor rules and regulations, just to make sure that you're kind of in line with what they'll allow you to do in that particular facility, because it is up to them to enforce any of those local rules and regulations.
That's a great point.
Can I swap the furniture that is included with my booth?
So all of the booth packages are just that. They are packaged items, specific items for each exhibitor. So if you do want something over and above or different than what's included, it is something that you would have to order kind of on an a la carte basis. If there's something included and you don't want it, that's fine too. You can, once we get to site, either come up to the service desk and let us know, hey, I have this table and chairs. I've got it covered, I don't need it, and we'll just send somebody over to come and grab that out of your booth space. Or you can feel free to just go ahead and nudge that out into the aisle, and our team will come by and collect it.
Also, if you know in advance that you won't need your portions of your booth package, you're more than welcome to call us in advance so we can work on making sure that those don't get delivered to your booth. A lot of people who have large custom displays don't tend to use the common furnishings that are automatically supplied. So if that's something of interest to you in advance, just please call and let us know.
What if my shipment is late to the warehouse or early to site?
That's a really good question. I think that the answer is a little bit complicated, but first off, I would highly recommend reaching out to our event services team. I think that for the most part, they can help and guide you through that process. Sometimes it's only a day late, and that won't necessarily disrupt the flow of moving materials from the advance to the site. But sometimes it's multiple days late, and it crosses over when we're starting to move materials from the advanced warehouse to site. So I do recommend starting with calling the event services team or emailing our event services team and giving them your situation and what to expect. There usually are fees for materials that arrive late to the advance, or if, in fact, they're outside the window for direct delivery, also fees for that as well. So, again, we want to make sure that your materials arrive at site, regardless of whether they're going to the advance or direct. And if you're going to miss windows, we certainly want to understand it. There are probably more important things around the window for delivery when it comes to direct shipping to the event site. And I'd love to say that there's flexibility there, but there isn't. A lot of the on-site receiving of materials needs to be done during those times, both for the receiving of and the shipping out. We are not physically there. If we are not physically there, we cannot physically obtain, retain, and hold on to your materials from your carrier of choice. And we certainly don't want to get into a situation where your materials are rejected by the facility, because if they don't have staff there to hold on to things, which they usually do not, they will not accept your materials. So we do want to make sure that you hit your deadlines when it comes to those particular windows. But again, reaching out to us, asking us, showing us what you're probably going to be sending in, why you might be late, what that might look like. We can even help you estimate some of those costs as well.
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that whether it's advanced or direct, making sure that your items are properly labeled. I think it's more so when you're looking at direct shipping that it has the show name, AGS Expo Services, your company name, and your booth number. If it does happen to arrive maybe a little bit early, it'll be easier for us to identify, or the facility to identify, that it does in fact belong to an AGS event. Again, I would encourage everybody to contact us if you have a situation where you think it might arrive early so we can point you in the right direction. But I just really wanted to emphasize how important it is to make sure that everything's labeled, not only, for an instance where it may show up early or late, but also just for the efficiency and expediting delivery of those materials once they do arrive.
Absolutely. I'd also encourage making sure that you have access to your tracking numbers and tracking information. More often than not, we want to make sure that we can help you. So both tracking information either in advance, which is great, but sending it with your team on show really is super helpful, because if a package doesn't particularly arrive on time, we certainly want to make sure that we're able to help you track it. We do our best at the service center to, take some of that information and see if we physically received it or not. And oftentimes just having that tracking information really smooths out some of that process. Yeah,
that's an excellent point. I think also making sure that you're using the correct labels. We do actually have pre-templated inbound shipping labels in our exhibitor kit information. You can pull them from the website, from the online ordering portal, and that's also going to be in the manual and form section. And there's both an advanced and a direct shipping label, just to help kind of show you what it'll need. Again, if you have a carrier that requires specific labels, you'll want to make sure you put those on there as well, but this will at least put all of the information that will require of you directly onto the package.
Yeah, those are super helpful. I think that they turn out to be probably some of the best. It also allows us to see the label at a distance when we're working with multiple packages and go, okay, we definitely know that if this was received by the facility, that is an AGS label. We're able to claim that, bring that back to the event site, and make sure that we can ultimately mate it with your other materials. All right. That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Well, I appreciate that, Kristen. Thank you so much for all of those great questions. Again, we're still taking questions while this event is running, and we're always available. I want to kind of stress that we're here, and we're here to help you both in advance, on site, and even after the event. So we encourage you to use this as a resource whenever and however you need. Even if we don't have the answer, we're going to do our best to try to find you some information to kind of supply it to you. But I'd like to kind of turn it over a little bit for some of the closing on this process. But
yeah, no, thank you guys so much for kind of tuning in and going through this exhibitor webinar with us today, so that, we can give you all the information to make this show as successful as possible for you. And we can expand on that too. If you guys have questions, if you have any of those scenarios where you're not sure about advanced versus direct, you have late shipments, pretty much anything, relating your exhibitor experience, we can assist you with. If we can't answer the question, we'll definitely point you in the right direction of where you can find that information. So there's a few different ways that you can reach us. If you're already in our online ordering portal, we actually have a live chat window, which is in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and that takes you to a live person. So if you're in the ordering process, you're trying to find some of the documents that we've talked about today, feel free to open up that chat window, and you'll get one of our live coordinators that can help you in real time, whether providing the form, answering a question, directing you on the place you'll be able to find that information. Also, our event services team is available by phone. You can call us at the office at 407-292-0025, or you can also get us by email at eventservices@ags-expo.com.
Awesome. That's perfect. And just as a reminder, once we're done today, you'll all receive a copy over email of the Podcast Movement Denver 2023's quick reference guide. And hopefully that helps kind of match up with what we've gone over today. I know we added a few more things in here that are a little bit more 101, and I hopefully they give you kind of a little bit of a comfort and some more mastery to sort of participating at this year's event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.